specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special, and that every Tuesday is Steak Night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll talk a lot about the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers. We'll get into the New Orleans Pelicans if we have time. And we got a great guest for you tonight. Two guys that I am happy to be on the radio dial with, and two guys that cover the Saints, Pelicans, LSU, Tulane, UNO, like nobody else. From Duncan Holder and NOLA.com, Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan join us on the program. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Congratulations on the radio show. You guys are so darn good. I had to come join you.
Well, we're very happy to be back, and great that you're on our lineup with us. We think it's just a sign of bigger and better things.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm so excited about the opportunity to be at Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, the iHeartRadio app, another way you can catch our shows, and you guys do a fantastic job. Again, it's just good to. First of all, I was a listener to the show, and that's part of it, not just because of our friendship and relationship. You guys do a great job, but you love to have an opportunity to be able to be in a place where you can tell it like it is, and you guys have done that since the inception. Larry, going all the way back to Sports Hangover over at 690, where we came from, and congratulations to both you guys doing a great job.
Yeah, it almost feels like old days when you could really tell like it is at 690, and I feel like. At Sports 1280, you're able to do the same thing. Look, I mean, we don't sugarcoat anything, and people give us blowback for what we say, but that's what it is. I mean, that's our job, to give our opinions and based on our experience and being in locker rooms and such. And so that's just the nature of it. And look, I'm fired up. I've been like banging the drum. Let's get Eric over to Sports 1280, and so it's a perfect fit with us before and you right at high noon.
Perfect lead-in. I said that one as soon as I came over. Could not have a better lead-in. And guys, it really kind of enhances your columns as well, because you guys are telling it like it is daily in your columns, whether it's Saints or, again, other things that you're talking about. And it gives you a chance to interact with the audience, and then, of course, also give your opinion, but then again to reach into your bag of contacts and to bring people from, whether it's in sports, whether it's local, national, reporters or players or coaches, bring those to your shows as well.
There's no doubt about it. I think what we're finding in this new modern era of media is that people consume news in all different ways. So I think Larry and I will attract new readers to the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com through our radio show. People are going to get to know us on that and through that medium, and hopefully they'll cross over and come over to us at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, and vice versa. I think it's going to work to the benefit of all of us.
And I think the fact that we're on the iHeartRadio app, I mean, we get basically on a Monday show, we get callers after a Saints game, and it's literally from coast to coast. I mean, like after this past game, it was full call board for 2 hours. It went from Sacramento to Jacksonville and everywhere in between, and even Minnesota. And those damn Minnesota people, they're too nice.
They are too. Aren't they nice?
Thomas Morstead. We've seen it. They're too damn nice. Even though they won, they're too nice.
Yeah, they are. Again, I was braced because again, when opposing team's fan will call a local radio show, you got to kind of be ready because they're going to blast. And I'm sitting there ready to react, and oh my God, they killed me with kindness.
Midwestern manners.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And it does make you, we don't root a lot in this business, but from what's happened with Thomas Morstead and his foundation, does make it, in knowing the history of Vikings fans and how tortured they are, I think Saints fans can identify with that. For all those years of heartache they had, I think they can relate to what the Vikings fans have been through, and maybe they pull for them the rest of the way.
Right, and you guys had Thomas Morstead on your show today, first to have him on the market. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's just an incredible story, I think, a real feel-good story that Thomas has come out of nowhere. Basically, it was engendered by the Vikings fan base that saw the way he played, hurt through pain in that NFC divisional playoff game. He fractured some ribs or tore cartilage in his ribs. And the Vikings fans, trying to show their respect to him, started looking into some of his background, came across his foundation, and there's this new trend that's going on. We saw it, Buffalo Bills fans donating to Andy Dalton's foundation. So a bunch of Vikings fans started donating to Thomas Morstead's What You Give Will Grow Foundation. It started out as a few $10 and $25 donations. It gained momentum. We wrote a story about it on Wednesday, and it just went viral. It went all over the country, and now the donations are over $180,000.
That's
it's
amazing.
Remarkable.
That's fantastic. And Larry, from covering Thomas Morstead, even going back to when he was a rookie to even now, I mean, he's a guy that he doesn't want to be known as a punter. He's a guy that's working out with the team. He's building muscle, and he wants to. If he gets a chance to lay a lick on you, he wants to. Only problem is he doesn't have the padding everybody else had, and of course that kind of led to the cartilage tear.
And if you're the Saints, you don't want him to have to make a tackle.
Yes.
That means the other 10 players made a snafu. And so, look, and you saw him fly over. Honestly, the first thing I thought of, I said, oh, gosh, he's going to get hurt. Because we've seen him actually get injured making a tackle a bunch of years ago in New England.
Yes.
Exactly. And so that's the last thing you need. And you could tell when he punted, the next punt was only 30-something yards. You could tell. And when he keeled over, he's like, oh, my God. You could tell he was certainly banged up. And it's funny, Thomas was basically saying, I was just kind of the last guy on the field. And then when he walked in, John Kuhn was standing there. It's like, guys, we need players on the field. And Thomas is like, all right, I'm just going to go. And he was the first one to run out. And he even said, this isn't because I'm taking some stand or anything. He just went out and did it. And the funny story behind it was that Case Keenum went up to him and said, look, we're just going to kneel. And Thomas says, good, because I'm about to get trucked by this 300-pound guy, so please just kneel.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, again, 10 to noon. Each and every weekday, Duncan Holder, got to check it out. Of course, check them out at NOLA.com, both of their great columns. And you'll be heading to Orlando, right, for the Pro Bowl?
It seems like that's the plan. Look, the Saints are going to be there, 6 players, the coaching staff. So it seems like I'm going to be going there. And we'll be covering the Senior Bowl. We'll have people at the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just kind of what we do at the Times.
Right. And you'll be at the Super Bowl, right, Jeff?
Right. Looking forward to a good game. I'm not looking forward to going up to the Arctic conditions that we experienced last week.
You're used to it, man. Come on. You're
I had to buy a new coat and gloves. I wouldn't
a real coat, right?
Yes.
Because again, and my daughter lived in Chicago for so long. She told me a while back, Dad, big difference between the coats we use down south and the coat you're using up north.
Big difference between 30 degrees and -5.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a winter coat that can handle 30 degrees.
Right.
I don't have one that can handle -5.
You should have seen how pathetic I looked waddling down the street because, take the Skyway. Well, one building was closed, couldn't get through. Jeff says, let's go downstairs. And I'm waddling behind, whining, complaining. The whole way. The whole time.
I would look like the Michelin Man. Believe me. That's how much clothes I would have.
I looked like Ralphie's brother in Christmas Store where I'm just like, I can't move. Exactly. I don't feel like moving. I'm dying
And
here.
you were still cool, right?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But the stadium's spectacular.
Is it really?
I mean, it's easily, I think, the best stadium in the league. I think it outdoes the new one in Atlanta. And I'm looking forward to seeing the spectacle of the Super Bowl there.
Well, at least the roof there doesn't leak, right? And
I don't think so, no.
and of course the other one's supposed to open, it never did. Just a shot at the Atlanta Falcons. Guys, great season, right? I mean, I looked at this team coming out of training camp. I thought they'd win 9-10 games. Then after the first two games, again, the way they lost, I'm backing off like a lot of people are. Don't think that maybe that we thought what we saw in preseason was fool's gold. this team proved that they got a lot of young talent. And, I kind of took an optimistic tone on Monday after the loss to the Vikings, because I look at this as the beginning of maybe something special with this team because of the players that are so young but yet so talented. Jeff, kind of give us your synopsis, looking back at the season, and maybe then we'll look forward.
Well, I think you took the right stance. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. There's reason for encouragement. The core of this team is mostly first and second year players. This rookie draft class has a lot of the same talent and characteristics and mental makeup of the 2006 draft class that this team built around, became the Super Bowl core. And I think this class is going to be part of that core, along with some guys from 2016, Sheldon Rankins, Mike Thomas. There's a lot of reason to think this team will be back in the mix. But I caution people, and Thomas Morstead talked about this today. Every year is different. You just don't know from year to year. But there is reason, I think, with this core. I mean, of the 6 Pro Bowlers that Larry's going to go see next week, all of them will be back on this team next year, assuming Drew Brees comes back. And that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
As for me, I think by the look of my dome, I did not have the same stance as either you or Jeff, 9 or 10 wins. No, I wasn't on that train to start the season. Obviously, I was not on that train after they lost to the Patriots, and then they decided to rattle off 8 games in a row, and I'm impressed with what they've been able to do, and I think you could argue this is Sean Payton's best coaching job of the 11 years, because he obviously was not there for all 12 years. Considering all the injuries, all the young players, and everything he kind of had to manage. I think it's one of the best jobs, if not the best jobs he's done. And I wrote a column earlier this week about, I think this team is on an upward track, but you always got to say they should be on an upward track, because nothing's guaranteed. You're an Aaron Rodgers injury away from kind of tumbling, or if you never know, some of the makeup say, I don't want to throw out any name, but what if some player gets his head too big and and it kind of causes some ruffles? You just never know.
Yes.
I don't think that's going to happen, but the schedule's going to be more difficult. They're playing a first-place schedule, and of course the division is not easy at all.
Right.
So that's going to be a challenge, and you just never know. But when they got into the playoffs, did I think they would go win the Super Bowl? No. I think getting into the playoffs is a good step. They won a playoff game. I mean, you kind of, when you step back away from it, even though they lost to the Vikings, I think it was still a very good season for the Saints.
And I think that, again, nobody, when you look at what's out there left, okay, and you think to yourself, wow, Saints would have a real chance of beating the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you look at Jacksonville and New England and you say, maybe there's a chance that if Jacksonville got in, you beat Jacksonville. Who knows what happens with New England? But I guess I'm saying this team, even with the injuries, the way they've been playing, looks like they would have been good enough to be able to get to a Super Bowl. Where they win or not is up in the air. But the loss here for a young team, I don't think is a real bad thing, because these guys got instant success coming out of college in a lot of cases, especially the young core that came in this year. And maybe this is an opportunity for them to buckle down and understand that, success in the NFL can be fleeting. And you have to be able to go into every season prepared, whether it's the off-season workouts or being prepared, obviously, for each and every game, so that you have an opportunity to be able to win the game despite talent. Because we've seen teams, as you mentioned, with injuries or implode. I don't know if you want to look at a silver lining, I don't know if it's a bad thing that this young team didn't get the success of going to the Super Bowl in their first year.
No doubt about it. This team has the mental makeup. From everything that we've heard, talking to players, the young players are mature beyond their years. I don't think the success that they had, initial success, is going to go to their head, and they're going to slack off this offseason. I think, if anything, coming up short is going to serve as a carrot for them to work even harder to build on what they did this season. And I don't think these guys, you could tell in that game in Minnesota, Larry and I were there, the Marshawn Lattimore, Alvin Kamara, that stage wasn't too big for those guys. Yeah. They did not look like rookies out there. Matter of fact, Kamara, they were leaning on him down the stretch. So those are going to be the core players, and I think the young leaders on the team, Cam Jordan, Mark Ingram, Mike Thomas, A.J. Klein, those guys have the right mental makeup to, I think, not allow these young cats to maybe go off the tracks.
When you mention Michael Thomas, you forget he's a second-year guy, so he's still a young guy as well. But here's the warning. 2006, in the moment in time, you thought, oh, these guys will be the same way as what we're describing right now. And you could look at the 6th class and say that's the best draft class, arguably with the Ricky Jackson, what was it, 1981 class. That's going to be in that same category, but it took them 2007, 2008, 2009 to get it right.
With a veteran team.
And there were some more veterans around, kind of middle-of-the-road veterans. I feel like the Saints are more talented now than they were then, but it still took them a few more years to get back to the playoffs.
Well, let's rewind and talk about how they got here. I mean, where the credit goes. Talk about Terry Fontenot, talk about Jeff Ireland, talk about Sean Payton, and talk about the reset of this franchise.
Well, I think Jeff Ireland's been a godsend for the front office. That was a very underrated move when they fired Rick Riperish, kind of shook up the scouting department. That was the fact that he was available, I think, was huge. If they don't get Jeff Ireland, and the reason it was such a big deal was he came from the Bill Parcells tree. He thinks a lot like Sean Payton. They like the same mental makeup, the characteristics that go into certain players that Bill Parcells liked. They think along the same lines. That was important for Sean Payton to find somebody that he trusted, somebody that thinks like him in the same building, and somebody that, frankly, is not afraid to say no to Sean Payton. There aren't very many people out on Airline Drive that will say no to Sean Payton. Jeff Ireland will. So I think that has been maybe one of the biggest reasons why this team has taken off. You mentioned Terry Fontenot. I'm glad you did, because his work goes undetected out there. I think he'll be a general manager in the league down the road. They've already sent Ryan Pace off to the Chicago Bears. Terry worked under Ryan for a number of years, and Terry is the guy that plugs in all those roster holes down the stretch when they're getting guys off the street.
Right.
And all of a sudden there's George
Freeney,
Johnson.
right.
Yeah, these guys we hadn't heard of. There was, what was the guy? Woodrow. Can't think
Hamilton.
of his name.
Not Woodrow
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Wilson.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm like on the first drive against the Vikings, number 96 is out there on the very opening drive making key plays. So that's Terry Fontenot's work.
I also think with Jeff Ireland, when he came on, people are thinking, oh, this is the guy who bombed out in Miami.
Yeah.
The fact that his role wasn't all-encompassing, I think the fact that he was specifically college, I think that was a huge key because remember, Mike Wallace, Donnell Ellerby, he was responsible for those signings, and those blew up in Miami, did not go anywhere. So the fact that he was more on the college end, could zero in on that, and you've got someone, honestly, that Mickey can collaborate with who's been in the same chair he's been in. I think it's been huge. And Jeff, you mentioned Terry Fontenot. Look at all the veteran free agents they signed in March.
Yeah.
Ted Ginn, A.J. Klein, Manti Te'o, and I mean, these guys. Larry Warford. Well, you know me, I'm a big Larry Warford guy.
Yeah.
Alex Okafor before he got hurt.
Sure.
Like these guys, some of these were kind of under the radar, and he was able to build this as far as the pro side. So it's been a great mesh and kind of 2 years in the making.
And here's the thing. Jeff Ireland's dad was a scout, longtime scout. Jeff Ireland is a scout at heart. That's what he likes doing. He likes being in the film room, breaking down film of prospects. I don't think he really is quite like a GM type. I think he's more comfortable doing what he's doing. Now, he's going to get a chance probably to be a GM down the road, but I think he's in the perfect role right now considering what the Saints have in place with Mickey and Sean.
Isn't he almost a de facto GM? And I mean, they have him as assistant GM listed, but when you look at Mickey Loomis's duties, really a capologist, and of course, Peyton again with the last say on everything. And maybe he may not have the title of GM, but he has the GM duties in a lot of cases.
I think they all are collaboratively making these decisions. I think we get caught up a lot of times in who's making the final call. I don't think they ever really get to the point where, no, we're bringing in this guy over your objections. I think they reach a consensus decision between Mickey and Sean, and Mickey's got a lot more power than I think people give him credit for. I mean, he is the GM. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
you agree?
Yes, and people want to say, oh, Sean has the final call. No, because there have been deals that Mickey has done, say, that Sean probably didn't like, and vice versa. And it's almost like whenever there's a bomb out, someone was responsible for almost making the push, and then like, all right, you talked me into it. So it's not just one person, like end all be all. Sean Payton should get success for everybody and should get crushed for screwing something up. No, it is certainly more collaborative than I think the general public understands.
Guys, let's talk. Let's once we rewind this and you look at the reset. not making the mistakes of the past. And one thing they learned after a little bit of success is, yeah, you can plug players in a lot of cases, but you better make sure you got the right guys to plugged in, not just guys that can play on the field, what they can do on the field, but also from a character standpoint, giving extensions to guys that maybe from a character standpoint didn't deserve it. You didn't need someone coming in and poisoning this locker room. And I think it's been as much about character as it's been about ability when they're going out and filling these roster holes.
Well, that goes back to the thing we were talking about earlier with Jeff Ireland and his Bill Parcells influence. Bill Parcells wanted tough, mentally tough, physically tough, smart guys, street brawler types. And I don't know if all these guys are like that, but one thing I would say about them is they don't have really any knuckleheads on this team. And they've had knuckleheads in the past. Yes. Not a ton of them, but there's been a handful, like most teams have. And this team doesn't have any. I mean, none. And these players in this draft class that they brought in, and last year, guy like Sheldon Rankins, Mike Thomas, I mean, they're pros. They got it quickly. They understood what it took off the field, the preparation it takes. You hear Alvin Kamara uses that word all the time, preparation. The reason we were so good, we prepared. That's all the stuff that goes on when the lights aren't on. Mm-hmm. The Monday through Sunday preparation that a lot of these young guys, once they get in the NFL making them some money, don't quite understand. You got to put in that effort. These guys do.
And you look at the way they've all just worked. I mean, it's not like you see a lot of mental mistakes from these young guys. That's a big thing.
High football IQ.
Let's be honest. We've probably seen more mental mistakes from Kenny Vaccaro than we have from, even though everyone's busting Marcus Williams' chops. We've seen definitely more mental mistakes from, say, a Kenny Vaccaro than some of these young guys.
Yep.
And so and Peyton calls him out on it. So it's something that they're getting the right guys. And I know we've probably talked about this and say, they always say they've got the right guys. This time they've actually gotten the right guys, and you can buy into what they're selling.
And let's don't underestimate the changes in the coaching staff as well that were made, and bringing in some guys that either had head coaching experience or were great teachers. Dennis Allen, Mike Nolan, Ryan Nielsen, Aaron Glenn on the defensive side. I've heard you met Dan Rauscher, the offensive line coach, a lot on what he's been able to do. A trifecta of coaches on special teams with Banta, O'Day, and Westhoff coming out of retirement. Sean Payton has surrounded himself with some good coaches, but it looks like also some great teachers as well.
And those weren't easy decisions to make. Sean's very loyal, like a lot of coaches, with guys that have been with him from the start. Joe Vitt, Greg McMahon, those guys were with him when no one really wanted to come here. And and so I have to give him a lot of credit for doing that. That could not have been an easy conversation. I mean, Joe Vitt was his consigliere. That was his guy. And there's no doubt that's had a huge impact on the defensive side of the ball. I think we all agree they played better at linebacker this year than they ever have, and they played better along the defensive line, especially all the young defensive linemen they have. So I think those were kind of hidden decisions that were made that were tough decisions but had to be made. And
Bill Johnson's with the Rams, and their defensive front's pretty good. So it's not like he's some bum coach.
Sure.
But you needed a change up in culture.
A new voice, right?
I think, And let's be frank, I don't think Sean Payton went into Mickey Loomis and Tom Benson and said, that's it, I'm going to get rid of these guys. I'm thinking it was, Sean, you got to make some decisions.
No doubt.
We're telling you got to make some decisions, or we're going to move in a different direction potentially. And so that had to be done. And I know Joe Vitt gets a hard time, but Mike Nolan came in and got it done. So there's some credence to that.
And I think Mike Nolan's been a big help to Dennis Allen. I mean, he's been a former defensive coordinator. He's been a head coach. Just having a different set of eyes and different values, different way of looking at things has helped this coaching staff a lot.
Right. Curtis Johnson with the wide receivers. Look at a guy, Ted Ginn couldn't catch the ball. I'm not saying that Curtis Johnson was responsible for this, but Ted Ginn was a 50-50 hands guy. He had his best year ever. You look at Brandon Coleman, a guy that was catching the ball with his body when he got here out of Rutgers, can catch the football. I mean, so again, they've got coaches that are cultivating talent, and that goes a long way in the NFL where you expect to maybe have a ready-made product when it hits your roster.
Yeah, well, this is a well-coached team. You see it on Sundays. They don't beat themselves, and that's half the battle in the NFL. They don't jump off sides. They don't do all the dumb things that can get you beat. And that's a credit to the coaching staff and to the players in the locker room for preparing right and being, having football IQ, like you mentioned earlier.
Like the MO of Saints teams in the past, right? They didn't beat themselves.
Yeah, and now you could argue, well, I've seen Ken Crawley and P.J. Williams have some pass interferences and hold too much, and I think that's something that you might look at that position going forward. But I do think that it's a different culture as far as with the coaching staff. I think you've got young voice in the defensive line, veteran voice with the linebackers. You've got Aaron Glenn, who is a Pro Bowler, and he's certainly been able to mold some of these guys. And you still can't discount talent. I think they're more talented. You don't get 6 Pro Bowlers by a fluke. All those guys deserve to be at the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I would agree. Guys, talk about the reincarnation of Sean Payton here. For a while there, it looked like Sean Payton maybe was not as focused as maybe he should have been on this team. Obviously, a lot of it has to do with, again, the influx of talent that he's had, but he seems to be a much more animated guy, a much more focused guy. Some of the antics that we've seen, with the skull clap and the choke sign, a lot of that stuff, you could say is maybe a little bush league, a little bit over the top, but I want to see an animated and energized Sean Payton on the sidelines. I want to see the wrath of Payton when things are not going well, and we've seen that again this season.
Well, I think you see that because he's got a good team. Let's not mix up the causatives here. The Saints, Sean Payton's cocky because the Saints are good. The Saints aren't good because Sean Payton's cocky. There's a delineation there,
sure.
And he is like this and emboldened because he's got a team that backs it up. He's going to do that when he thinks he's going to win the game. He's not going to do it if he was out there getting drubbed. And I think he's at his best when he's got a good team. He's aggressive, and Dennis Allen is a good fit for him. I think he's got more confidence because he has more confidence in the defense now, and he can coach with a little more, I think, edge. But he's crossed the line a few times. Let's face it. Some of the stuff he's doing, your NFL head coach should not be doing. He acts more like a wrestler or something, the Brock Lesnar or something out there. But I think at some point it plays into the mind of the players. They like that. I think the players respond to his aggressiveness, and some of them probably roll their eyes at him. But I think these younger guys like that their head coach is somewhat arrogant.
And don't forget, remember when Greg Williams came back to the Superdome? Sean Payton did all this trickeration and played the music afterwards. So he was animated because they were beating the hell out of the Rams. All the other times, all you're seeing him do is scream at somebody. He's not like doing the Ric Flair walk or something like that. And don't forget, he's doing Ric Flair chops, the dirt cutter after the game. He's got the broom and all this stuff. But yeah, look, it's not the best look when you're giving the skull and then burn, you look like Guy Morris before the Bluegrass Miracle.
Boy, is that a great...
that's what you look like. And that wasn't even Guy Morris's fault. This was on Sean Payton. He did it to himself. But look, I do think that, say, someone like Cam Jordan can say, all right, Sean's just being over the top, and he doesn't need that. But maybe some of the other guys do. Maybe they need to respond to it because I talked with Cam after the choke, and he said, look, sometimes you got to scale it back. And here's the other thing. Sean can get away with it, but imagine if Dennis Allen did that. Sean would go nuts. Imagine if Tommy Lee Lewis did that. He'd get cut.
Sure.
Come on. It's a little too much for me at times.
Well, that's the point. Sean uses the comparison a lot, that coaching, he uses comparisons, says coaching's like teaching, parenting. Well, this isn't a lesson that anybody should follow.
Right, no doubt. You're watching Inside New Orleans. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Jeff Duncan, Larry Holder of Knoll.com, and Duncan Holder on Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, 10 to noon weekdays. You can check them out on the radio as well. We're going to take a quick break. We come back, continue some Saints conversation. We'll jump into some LSU. If we have time, we'll get to the Pelicans as well. Again, you're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Don't go anywhere.
Air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhardt has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhardt's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhardt's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhardt's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or AmcoFenceCompany.com.
Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Jeff Duncan, Larry Holder of NOLA.com, and Duncan Holder on Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, the iHeartRadio app. Catch them weekdays, 10 to noon. Right before me, noon to 2 on Sports 1280. Guys, good news, I think, for the fan base. And Larry, I'll take you first on this one. Drew Brees pretty much saying at this point, look, I want to come back. That there has been some discussions, even though he said he would not negotiate within the season, about coming back, wants to get this deal done before free agency. My question is, what does the deal look like? How much money does he make? People are asking about a hometown discount. I don't know about that. But what do you expect to happen with the Brees contract?
I do think it's a matter of, as far as for Drew, I think it's going to be the biggest overblown storyline of the next couple of months because I don't think there's any question he's going to have a deal. It's just, what is it going to be? Should it be 2 years? Should it be $20 million a year, $23 million a year, something like that? I could see him scaling back on the money. I could see him doing that. I think he knows that, boy, I'll be 40 at the end of next year, 41 if I get a 2-year deal. I could see him maybe scale back a little bit. Do I think he's going to, pay me $10 million? No, that's not going to happen. But I could see him look and be like, all right, I'm at this point in my career. I don't think anyone wants to leverage each other. I think both sides want it to get done, but Drew Brees is still going to want to be compensated enough. I don't think he wants to scale it back down. And he's still a union guy. He doesn't want to deflate a contract, and then all of a sudden quarterbacks aren't going to be getting paid as handsomely. But I do see that there's no question that Drew comes back, zero question. And yet it's more about years and structure of the contract. And I mean, at this point, it's anybody's game because I don't know if either side really has a number in their head. Maybe Mickey does. He probably does, knowing Mickey Loomis. He probably has a number in his head. But we're talking about Drew Brees. I'm sure that number can fluctuate more than, say, some other players he's had to negotiate with in the past.
Jeff?
I think the real question isn't whether it gets done or how much money it is. It's how many years
What do you think
they
the
commit
length
him
is?
to. I think 3. 3 sounds about right to me.
Is that 2 and an option or just straight 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the things they'll negotiate and try and figure out. But I agree with Larry. There's no doubt he's going to re-sign here. And if he gets to free agency without a deal, it's a massive failure on the part of everybody involved, especially the organization.
Jeff, I was reading today somewhere between 172 and 179 million in terms of the cap. The Saints somewhere between 22 and 23 and 33 million in terms of cap space. A lot of unknowns in terms of, is there a medical hardship they can get back from the Nick Fairley deal and get that money back? What's the situation? And I know the cap pretty well. You guys know the cap pretty well, but I have not been able to find any verbiage on what's the deal with the $18 million in dead money on Brees' contract. Does that go away with a new contract? Does that have to be spread out over the next 3 years? Can you break down where they are in the cap and what's going to happen, particularly, especially with, again, the Fairley deal and the money that's the dead money that's left over from the previous deal with Drew Brees?
Well, we talked about it today. I don't think anybody knows exactly what their number is. And I think people get too caught up in the cap, frankly. I mean, there's so many numbers games they can play with these deals and re-sign guys and stretch numbers out that in this instance where the Saints have some money to play with, they've got a huge deal they're going to work on with Brees where they can really stretch him out over a certain period of time. I don't think there's anything to worry about. And I think what they do with Kobe Fleener, if they decide to make a deal with Kenny Vaccaro, which I don't know if
do you think
we
both
know
those
yet.
guys are back? See, I don't. But do you think
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a good call either way. I'll be surprised if Vaccaro is back.
Right.
I'd honestly be surprised if either one's back.
Me too.
Because Kobe Fleener's cap number is $8 million. It's tied for the fourth highest with Max Unger. That's not right. So he could come back if he takes a pay cut. I feel like that would be it. And my understanding is any of the dead money attached to Drew Brees' contract, basically you're tearing that deal up to make a new one. So that would go away. So you don't really know what the Saints are going to be playing with once they hit free agency until a Brees deal is done.
Right.
But I'm with Jeff. You can manipulate that as long as you're not negative $40 million, like something crazy. I mean, the Saints were never that, but might have had like $40 million in dead money. They don't have that. They got some dead money, no major issues. Also, another contract you might as well bring up, Zach Strief. I think his cap number might be around $5 million. I mean, if he retires or whatever, I mean, you could shift some of this stuff.
What do you think
around.
happens there? Because I read you guys' pieces about and about the Strief. Does Strief want to come back and maybe be that guy that's the first guy up off the bench?
No.
His leadership, does that mean something? Is he going to fight for a spot with Ramczyk? What do you think happens?
He doesn't want any part of that. He's said that before. He doesn't want to be that guy hanging on, being the backup swing tackle. And now maybe his opinion changed with the way his final year went, and he wasn't a part of it. That could have changed. But in conversations I've had with him, he doesn't want to be that guy on the bench, being the role model, the mentor in the meeting room. He's got too many other things he wants to do off the field. He's involved in local business. He's starting a family, and I think he's mentally. I really believe he's ready to move on. But this last year didn't end the way he wanted. That could be the one thing that gets him back.
And also, I don't think he's going to want to go to another team, and he doesn't want to live. I mean, I'll just put this out there. He doesn't want to be Bryce Harris, where he's on a roster, off a roster, this, that, the other. He doesn't want to do that. He's played 12 years in the league. He's had a very good career, and as Jeff said, he has other ventures. Look, if he wanted to be in the media, he could easily be in the media. But yeah, I do think that you combine that and the way Ryan Ramczyk played, I think he's smart enough to see, well, I mean, if he's probably thinking, if I'm the GM, I'm certainly going to play Ryan Ramczyk. I mean, there's no question.
Zach's a smart guy. He knows. Yeah. He knows the starting tackles are Armstead and Ramczyk.
Right. Guys, is there a unrestricted free agent or restricted free agent on this team that they have to have back?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, Drew Brees, unrestricted,
that,
other than Brees. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the core of this team is already under contract for next year. Whether they bring back Fleener, I think Larry's right. At that number, I don't see him coming back. We don't even know if he will come back. He's had a lot of concussion issues. I mean, there could be a health consideration for him. But I think tight end's a huge need for this team, whether it's in free agency or the draft. We all hear about Jimmy Graham. Would he come back?
Do you think it's realistic?
Sure. I think this team's shown a history of bringing back former players. There's been some hurt feelings there, but I don't think he'll get out of Seattle. I know people have said that they don't think he'll be back. I think they're going to make a play for him.
Do you think it's realistic?
I think I don't want to say never, because I didn't think Jari Evans and the Saints would have a reunion either, because that didn't seem like it ended amicably either. But as far as an unrestricted free agent on the Saints, I'm wondering what they do with Senio Kelemete, because he's been key, plug and play. He's probably going to want to look for a starting job. I don't know if he'll ever get starter money from somewhere, but he's been vital this year. Without him, they'd been in real big trouble. Yeah. And so, because I'm not thinking Kenny Vaccaro is going to be back, my advice to him would be, go get paid. Chase the money. Yeah. Sorry, I mean, you're looking out for you, whatever. Even if you go to Cleveland, so what? If they overpay for you, you go. Who cares? But, it's not like it's this major unrestricted class. Now, restricted free agents, I think you've got some interesting scenarios with Delvin Breaux, with Willie Snead, with Brandon Coleman. Yeah. Are you going to tender these guys or not?
Yeah, because the tender comes with the draft choice, right?
Well, they don't have to, because none of them were drafted. Right. So they would all come with. Now you could bump it.
That's what.
There's no way they're going to bump it, and the minimum would be around $2 million. Yeah. For a non-compensation tender. I don't know if the Saints want to pay any of them $2 million.
The guy to think about down the road is Mark Ingram. I mean, I think he's got 1 year left after this year. Alvin Kamara has emerged as a future star. What do they do with him?
Yeah.
I mean, do they hang on to him and then lose him in free agency, or do they do something like they did with Brandon Cooks?
Yes. Guys, because I want to move on to LSU quickly. Needs. What do you think the needs in this team are, whether it be free agency leading in the draft? Give me maybe 4 or 5 needs.
Well, I saw Case Keenum have the ball for 9 seconds before he delivered a pass against Minnesota. I've been on the train for a while. They've got to get another pass rush, somebody to play opposite Cam Jordan. I think Alex Okafor was a decent stopgap. We don't know what he's going to come back like. So I think they've got to get defensive end. They've got to get another corner. I'm not as sold on King Crawley at all. I think he's a nice fill-in for a young guy. He overachieved. They've got to get another corner, and then I think they have to get a tight end and another receiver.
Yeah,
I think
I
those 4 things.
Yeah, and
I'll throw a linebacker in there as well.
Yeah, you need some linebacker depth there because you basically played with 2 or 3 guys all year with the injuries. But, I mean, those positions are certainly one, all valid. And I feel like the Saints are going to have to draft an edge guy. You look at the potential free agents, and the top one is DeMarcus Lawrence. And then you look, and it's not these big names. It wasn't as plentiful as last offseason, and yet last offseason, all those guys got franchise tag,
Right.
which I assume DeMarcus Lawrence will in Dallas as well.
Sure.
So that's not really an option. If I'm going to be the Saints and I'm going to go spend money, I am going to go and revisit my good old friend in New England, Malcolm Butler. I think they go spend the money on him.
Yeah.
They know him. He knows them. I'm sure he was willing to go to the Saints when all that stuff was going down. I think they rekindle, and I would not be stunned at all if he was in New Orleans next year.
New England's probably not going to pay him.
Right.
They have a history of not paying these guys.
And they've already paid the other guy.
They paid Stephon Gilmore.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense. He's from Alabama, I think. Makes perfect sense.
I agree with these guys all the time. Are you kidding me? Guys, let's shift gears to the Tigers. I mean, you went from a season where people were really excited, and then you had the Troy game where people were out with pitchforks and torches, to again turning it around, playing Alabama tough. But then it changed again with the loss to Notre Dame in the Citrus Bowl. You didn't get the 10-win season. You didn't get the win over a national opponent. You didn't get the quote-unquote Citrus Bowl. You can walk around saying you're a bowl champion. And then, of course, the infighting with Matt Canada came to light. And all of a sudden, Ed Ogeron was on a little bit of a hot seat. And that hot seat continues to get hotter because instead of going out and getting the best coordinator in America in terms of the offensive coordinator, he went safe and went with someone he felt comfortable with in former LSU quarterback and tight ends coach now offensive coordinator Steve Ensminger. We know that Aranda there was a flirtation with Texas A&M. He's back and getting paid well, $10 million over the next 4 years. What's your feeling on where the LSU program is right now?
Well, I don't think it matters what I feel or what Larry or you feel. I think it matters what prospects feel and how the fan base feels. And right now, I feel like there's a lot of questions. And my biggest concern with this move at offensive coordinators is the optics of it. If I'm a top quarterback prospect, which has eluded this team for a decade, what are they thinking? Are you really going to want to go to LSU with a coordinator that hasn't been in the game for 20 years, hasn't coordinated an offense? I think they should have gone with somebody like one of these young, hotshot offensive coordinators that can attract a top quarterback. They're never going to beat Alabama with these game managers. You just don't do it. And that is the reality that they have in the SEC West. So I think this feels like a Band-Aid to me until they can figure it out, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all.
All I know is that it came out this week. I think Les Miles did a radio interview, might have been up in Baton Rouge, and he said he wanted to hire Steve Ensminger as offensive coordinator. If I'm an LSU fan, I would have the pitchforks and the torches and be like, if Les Miles thinks he's a great offensive coordinator, it is over. That's it. The end. Crash and burn. So, and you look at the schedule next year, it's daunting. And so
Miami and Dallas,
at
Auburn, at Florida, Georgia at home, Alabama at home. Wow.
And you look at just what they have on the team. Now, I'm curious to see if a lot of these prospects play right away, and you still got the National Signing Day still coming in February. But if I'm LSU and if I'm dumping money in, and I'm giving money away. Matt Canada, go away. You failed for a year. See you later. You're paying less. You're paying all these other people. At some point, when's enough going to be enough? And I'll tell you, when enough might become enough after this year, if they go 7-5 or something like that, and people stop giving money and people stop going to games and recruiting falls off. I think we're on the teetering edge of that. This is as critical of a year as we've seen in a long time for LSU either being a national power or just say, I don't know, Texas, who's trying to claw back, and some other schools like that.
And here's the thing that Larry made a good point, and you did too, about the schedule. Assistant coaches, they talk, they know each other. It's a very small community. They look at that schedule. They see, they hear what's going on in Baton Rouge. It's going to be hard for Ed Ogeron to attract a top assistant because they know this team can go 7-5. It could be a dumpster fire. I'm not going there.
Right.
So they have to throw money at somebody, and they've already been throwing money around. So I think that played into why he probably had to do the fallback option with Ensminger.
Right, Ensminger, but also Jerry Sullivan. I mean, bringing him, look, great wide receivers coach. I mean, incredible in the pros and in college, but 73 years old. He's going to be a passing game coordinator. They bring in James Craig from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's going to be the offensive line coach. He's the running game coordinator. So now it's just not one individual that's coordinating your offense. It's three individuals that have input here.
Yeah, it's a unique situation. And look, either Ed Ogeron's going to sink or swim with this decision, and then ultimately Joe Oliva will sink or swim with the decision to bring in Ed Ogeron.
You combine that, and I'm just wondering what type of horses they have on this team. I mean, you're losing your top two running backs. You're losing experience at wide receiver.
Best pass rusher.
Best pass rusher, Arden Key. Miles Brennan, what is he going to be like? All so far with what we've seen, it seemed like the lights were a little too big for him.
Yep. Guys, let's shift gears to the Pelicans for a few minutes, and we're going to go to the phone lines at 866-3200. Pelicans 23-21 at the as we do this show live here on this Thursday night. Jeff, I talked about it on my radio show the last couple of days, talked about it again today. I know you're writing a column on it this week. You know, I think it's a flawed roster, and I think the flaw starts with Boogie Cousins. I don't want to pile on Boogie Cousins, but I'm at the point now of watching this guy now for almost the last part of last season and then the first part of this season. I just don't think they'll ever win a championship with this guy. He's got too many flaws to his game: the antics, the lack of defense, the slowing down of the offense. I mean, I could go into it. I mean, I went to it extensively with my radio show today. Guys, your thoughts on the Pelicans? This is a team that has talent, but again, they don't play basketball the right way. So I don't see them as, even though they're tied, but you can say the 6th or the 8th seed now is a 3-way tie with Portland and the Clippers as we sit here today. I don't see this team going anywhere, honestly, under the direction it is right now with the cast of players that they have right now.
Well, it was almost a year ago when they made the trade for Cousins. If you remember, it was the All-Star game here in New Orleans. And the column I wrote back then was, it's boogie or bust. They were rolling the dice. It was a desperation move, and frankly, I understood it at the time. You had to bring in a guy of that caliber, see if you could make it work, play him alongside Anthony Davis. Maybe it does work. So far, it hasn't really worked. I think we all agree. It hasn't been at least what we thought it was going to be, this dominant inside duo. There's still time to put it together, but they're running out of time. They're running out of excuses, and they're running out of patience with the fan base. The fans have heard these excuses over and over, and for whatever reason, DeMarcus Cousins, whatever team he's been on, has never won. And I know in fantasy basketball, this team looks great.
Yes.
When you put these two guys on the court, it looks great in your fantasy box score the next day. But it's not adding up to wins because there's all these intangible things that go into playing basketball, getting back on defense, setting the right picks, going to the boards, helping your teammates out, setting them up. I mean, there's all these things that I don't think DeMarcus Cousins makes teammates better. People will argue otherwise, but I think there's a reason why his teams have lost in the past, and I think we're starting to see that here in New Orleans.
All I know is the expectations were that the Pelicans would be somewhere between 5 and 8 in the playoff picture, and that's fine. But when you've got 2 NBA All-Star starters, and you would easily say they're 2 of the top 10 players in the league, and you can't win and get 3 games above 500 in the season, and you lose to Atlanta, and you lose to Memphis, and you lose to Orlando, and you lose to all these teams that are terrible, why would I buy in? Why would I buy in? We've seen it pour, and why, after they make all these moves, why would I buy in? I don't see, at this point, you're more than halfway through the season. Why would I buy in at this rate?
Jeff, what happens? I mean, some want to blame it on Gentry, some want to blame it on Demps. Obviously, all these guys are tied at the hip with Boogie Cousins. Do they trade Boogie Cousins at the trading deadline? Anthony Davis seems to have an affinity for him. I talked about it today. I think outside of, again, maybe their personal relationship, he loves the fact that he's got a center, keeping the centers off of him as playing that power forward position, not having to play the 5. What's the answer here, or is there an easy answer for this team going forward?
Well, I use the Sean Payton line all the time. There's a lot of dirty hands. I think it's not simple to say it's all DeMarcus Cousins' fault or need to fire Alvin Gentry. I think everybody's involved in this thing, and they're all tied into it together. The front office has made this decision to try and make it work. And let's not jump the gun here. I mean, they are over 500.
Yes,
they are probably going to be in the playoffs.
They will.
But they're not realizing the potential. The West hasn't been quite as tough as we all thought it was going to be. So, but if you're asking me, are they going to make a change of any sort big in the season? I don't think so. That's not the way this organization has run in the past. I don't think Mickey Loomis or Tom Benson's motivated to make any kind of major change here midseason. I think they want to ride out these two big guys, see where it takes them, and then maybe they do something in the offseason, whether it's in the coaching staff, front office, or the roster. But I'll be surprised if any of that happens during the season.
The next major move would be to clean house GM coach, which I could easily see that happening. And then if you move on from Boogie Cousins, what do you do after that?
Yeah.
And I think that's a major decision, and that's going to be the debate. Do they invest in the future with Boogie Cousins, or do they move in a different direction and bring some other pieces and focus around Anthony Davis and bring in some, not superstar, but some quality star talent and build a team around it?
To the phone lines we go, 866-3200. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan of Duncan Holder on Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, weekdays 10 to noon. And, of course, catch their great columns at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Deborah is in New Orleans. Deborah, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Deborah.
Hi. You can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, I just wanted to say to the Saints fans and the New Orleans Saints team, what a season that we had, because I didn't even give them to go to the playoffs. I gave them like 9-7 to finish the season. But my thought is, if we go to the draft, we can get a tight end, a pass rusher, maybe a linebacker, and some other pieces. And maybe, hopefully, next season, we can go all the way. And I'll hang up and listen.
Deborah, I'll say it again, from your mouth to God's ears on that one. Guys?
I like her draft.
Yeah,
she knows the needs.
Yes,
There's no doubt about it. They're going to look there, and I think tight end, I don't know if they want to go spend big money again on someone like Coby Fleener. Maybe they get someone to develop. Remember, they drafted Jimmy Graham in the 3rd round, and he came along pretty quickly.
Yeah, they've never really invested tons of money in their perimeter skill position players on offense.
Yeah, and look, they've done a good job in developing tight ends as well. To Greg and Homer. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. My question is, the coaching staff that we have with Dennis Allen and Mike Nolan, why do you think no one's going after them this year? And then my other question is, how long do we keep them before other teams start going after all of our coaching staff? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks. That's a good thing, though, isn't it, guys?
That's a good question, don't you think?
Yeah, I think Dennis needs to prove it a little longer than 1 year, honestly. He bombed out as a head coach. The last 2 years, while he was defensive coordinator, it wasn't great. And I think there are other young up-and-comers. I don't think anyone would fire up a fan base if Dennis Allen was a head coach in the NFL because of his track record in 1 year as turning the defense around.
It's hard to get a second chance. Very few coaches do get that second chance. Mike Nolan also washed out in San Francisco, so I think Larry's right. They've got to build more of a body of work here. If they go back to the playoffs, make a big, deep run, people will be knocking on the door.
To Tammy in Gray, Louisiana. Tammy, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Tammy.
Yes, sir. I was just wondering what y'all think about I think Anthony Davis is going to need a lot of help, and not just that. I think that they're going to need to bring in some more quality players to help him and the new coach. I'm going to hang up and listen to your thoughts.
Thank you. Guys, trading deadline coming up. Do you think they're buyers?
They might be. I just don't know what they're going to move and what people would want. Look, they're not going to make a boogie splash, but do they try to make a move and make calls? I'm sure, because they know they're kind of teetering on the edge.
Yeah, I don't think they have the money.
Right, no, they don't.
Available to make a big splash.
Which would mean they'd have to use their first-round pick.
Right, and I don't know if they're ready to do that yet.
What do you mean? They just throw picks around? No problem. Forget the draft.
I think Mickey Loomis is going to be heavily involved in decision-making now, and Dell Demps is going to be a little bit handcuffed because he might not be a part of the future.
Yeah, that might be a good thing. And as far as the coach goes, we talked about it. Things don't turn around. We can expect to see maybe some changes at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt.
Michael is in Plaquemines. Michael, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Michael.
Hello.
Hey, Michael, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering about this deal with young player Sean Payton brought on board, and checking to see if you guys think he might really develop into a replacement for Drew Brees eventually.
Oh, okay, Taysom Hill. Got it.
Pat on the back of the Saints.
Thank you, Michael. Taysom Hill.
Oh,
guys.
man, Sean Payton is enamored with Taysom Hill. Larry knows this story. I mean, I ran into Sean at Audubon Park one night, and he just unsolicited started singing his praises.
You think
about
it's real,
Taysom
though?
Hill. Well, in his mind, it is. Now, look, we haven't seen Taysom Hill play in a game yet. Right. Under center. We've seen him run down on kickoff coverage, punt coverage. Look, he was in love with Garrett Grayson, and we saw how that worked out. So I'm tempering my enthusiasm. But I would say the guy's a tremendous athlete and had a great college career before he got hurt. So we'll see.
Guys, the only quarterback under contract into 2018 is Taysom Hill. It's starting. Washington. Drew Brees is out. Chase Daniels out. Taysom Hill time. It's going to be like Tony Romo. No, he's going
to be like Guido Merkins. He's a jack of all trades.
His infatuation with Taysom Hill is certainly real. There's no doubt about it. But and I think it also just goes to show you they were willing to try anything. This guy's a stud athlete. And look, the fact that he pulled that switch was a great call by him.
It worked, though, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think it also is important that Mike McCarthy liked him. I mean, Mike McCarthy knows quarterbacks. Sure. I've known Mike for a long time. He can spot quarterback talent. He really wanted him, and the Saints got him away from him. So that was a kudos to the Saints.
Guys, what's interesting, and I only got a few seconds left, but the fact that they've used him on kickoffs, punts, special teams, and he was a guy that was often injured at college.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt. That's what hurt him. But he was going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate at Brigham Young before he got hurt. And he's an older player, too. I like that about him. He's got some moxie. He's not some fresh-faced guy that's in his 20s. I mean, this guy's been around the block a little bit, so he could maybe – I think the learning curve will be less for him than it would be, say, a 21-year-old.
Maybe he should have thrown the pass instead of Willie Snead.
Hey, there you go. That's another thought.
I thought about that.
Poor Willie.
These guys, huh? Look, 10 to noon, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, the iHeart Radio app, also NOLA.com. Don't miss it. Jeff, Larry, thanks for being with us.
You got it, E.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLE at 10 p.m. Also, statewide on Pelican Sports Television. That's Friday night at 9 o'clock. Remember, if you missed any of the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports, go to ericasher.com and check them out there. Catch me on the radio. Proud to say, coming on right after these guys. They're on 10 to noon. I'm on noon to 2. Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, the iHeart Radio app. You can listen live at ericasher.com, also sports1280.com. And, of course, again, make sure that you are tuning into our great radio station. We got a fantastic lineup for you from 6 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. Special thanks also to the WLA production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson. We've also got Naila Jones, Trey Lopez, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll see you next week with another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com.